My son-in-law and his parents hated me, considering me unworthy of their circle. On the way to their house, I stopped to help fix a 60-year-old woman's car, was late, and arrived dirty. They shooed me away like garbage, with contempt and anger, but then the woman I was helping arrived, and what she said turned everything upside down. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. The newspaper crinkled between my fingers as I folded it back to the sports section. Saturday mornings had their own rhythm now, coffee cooling in the chipped blue mug, silence stretching through my small kitchen like an old friend. The apartment held that particular stillness that comes when you've lived alone, long enough to stop expecting company. 3 years since Martha passed, and I still set the paper down where she used to sit. The phone's shrill ring cut through the quiet like a blade. My hand jerked, sending coffee droplets across the obituaries. Who called at 10:30 on a Saturday? Rachel usually texted first, and my few remaining friends knew better than to interrupt weekend solitude. Hello? Donald. The voice carried that familiar chill, my son-in-law's practiced politeness that never quite masked his discomfort. It's Richard. I straightened in the wooden chair, its legs creaking against the linoleum. Richard never called, ever. When communication happened between us, it flowed through Rachel like water, finding the path of least resistance. Richard. Everything all right? A pause stretched across the line, filled with the sound of his careful breathing. Rachel insists I call you about something. The words carried weight, each one measured and reluctant. My mother's birthday dinner, tonight. My stomach tightened. Serenity Thompson's birthday, I'd forgotten. Though Rachel had mentioned it weeks ago, the way Richard said insists made it clear whose idea this invitation wasn't. I see. She thinks you should come. Another pause, longer this time. The family's gathering at 7. Worthington Hills Country Club, Worthington Hills. Of course, where the valet parking costs more than my weekly grocery budget, and the wine list read like a foreign language, designed to separate the worthy from the wanting. I glanced around my kitchen, the mismatched plates drying in the rack, the refrigerator humming its mechanical song, the single coffee cup that had become my entire morning routine. That's thoughtful of Rachel. Yes. Well, Richard's tone suggested thoughtfulness had nothing to do with it. Dress is business casual. The club has standards. The way he said standards landed like a small punch, not cruel enough to challenge directly, but pointed enough to remind me where I stood in their world. I ran my thumb along the rim of my coffee mug, feeling its rough edges where the ceramic had chipped. I'll be there. Fine. 7 o'clock sharp. They don't hold reservations. The line went dead before I could respond. I held the phone against my ear for another moment, listening to the dial tone's steady hum. Outside, a neighbor's lawnmower started up, its engine coughing to life with the kind of mechanical complaint I understood. Business casual, at Worthington Hills. I looked down at my faded Ohio State t-shirt and work pants. The clothes hanging in my bedroom closet hadn't seen a country club in years, maybe ever, but Rachel would be there, and despite Richard's cold delivery, she'd asked for me. That meant something. The coffee had gone cold while I sat there, the newspaper forgotten. I pushed back from the table and stood, my knees protesting the sudden movement. 7 o'clock gave me time, but not much. First, I needed something decent to wear, then a gift worthy of Serenity Thompson's expectations. My wallet sat on the counter beside yesterday's mail. I flipped it open, counting the worn bills inside. Enough for a modest present, though nothing that would impress the Thompson family. Still, it wasn't about impressing them. It was about showing up for Rachel when she needed me there. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, its quiet less comfortable. I grabbed my keys from the hook by the door, the familiar weight of them solid in my palm. The Toyota waited in the parking lot, reliable as sunrise despite its age and accumulated scratches. Time to venture into their world, armed with nothing but stubborn pride and a father's love. 20 minutes later, I stood before my bedroom closet, water still dripping from my hair onto the towel around my shoulders. The shower had washed away the morning's stillness, but not Richard's words. Business casual at Worthington Hills. Translation: Don't embarrass us more than necessary. My dress shirts hung in a neat row, pressed but showing their age. Navy blue seemed safest, conservative enough to blend in, dark enough to hide any shortcomings. I pulled it from the hanger, the fabric soft, from countless washings. Martha used to iron my shirts with military precision, each crease sharp enough to cut. Now I managed with wrinkle-release spray and careful hanging. The drive to Eastland Mall took 15 minutes through Saturday traffic. Families loaded into SUVs, kids clutching shopping lists for birthday parties and weekend activities. Normal families who probably didn't navigate minefields of social expectations every time they gathered. Inside the mall, the weekend crowd moved with purpose. Young mothers pushed strollers past storefronts, while teenagers clustered around phone charging stations. I found myself studying the other shoppers, wondering which ones would fit naturally at Worthington Hills, and which, like me, would stick out like grease stains on silk. The department store's perfume counter hit me first, a wall of competing scents that made my eyes water. Women in crisp uniforms offered samples and advice to customers who looked like they belonged in Richard's world. I moved deeper into the store, past displays of handbags that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Can I help you find something? The sales clerk appeared beside me, her smile professional but genuine. Mid-40s, wedding ring catching the overhead lights, the kind of person who understood working for a living. Birthday gift for my son-in-law's mother. Her expression shifted slightly, reading between the lines. What kind of relationship do you have with her? Smart question. Complicated? She nodded, understanding more than I'd said. Price range? 50 to 75. Follow me. We moved toward a display of silk scarves and jewelry. Nothing too personal, nothing too cheap. Safe territory for difficult relationships. She pulled out a silver picture frame, elegant but not ostentatious. Classic choice. Shows thoughtfulness without overstepping. I turned it over in my hands, feeling its weight. Solid but not flashy. The price tag said $68, more than I usually spent. But this wasn't usual. The memory hit me without warning. 3 years ago, the first time I'd met Serenity and Palmer Thompson. Rachel had insisted on dinner at some Italian place with white tablecloths and waiters in bow ties. I'd worn my best shirt, the one Martha picked out for church services and special occasions. Serenity's face when Rachel introduced me still burned clear in my mind. That moment of confusion followed by the careful recalibration when she realized her daughter-in-law's father fixed cars for a living. Palmer's handshake had been brief, dismissive, his attention already shifting to safer topics. Dad works with his hands, Rachel had said, trying to bridge the gap. He can fix anything. How practical, Serenity had replied, the pause before practical speaking volumes. The sales clerk's voice brought me back to the present. Sir, the frame? I'll take it. She wrapped it carefully in tissue paper, then slipped it into a small gift bag with ribbon handles. Professional presentation for amateur money. At the register, I counted out the bills, the transaction feeling heavier than it should. Walking back through the mall, I caught glimpses of my reflection in storefront windows. Clean shirt, pressed pants, gift bag in hand, trying to dress up for people who'd already decided I didn't belong. But this wasn't about them. This was about Rachel, about showing up when family needed you, even when family didn't particularly want you there. The Toyota started on the second try, engine settling into its familiar rhythm. I set the gift bag carefully on the passenger seat and checked the dashboard clock. 12:40. Enough time to get home, grab my jacket, and leave for Dublin, with a few minutes to spare. The afternoon stretched ahead like a road into uncertain territory. 2 hours in the car to think, to prepare for whatever waited at Worthington Hills. Richard's cold invitation echoed in my mind as I backed out of the parking space, but underneath it, I heard something else. Rachel's voice from that first dinner, trying to make peace between worlds that had no interest in meeting halfway. I shifted into drive and headed home, the gift bag rustling with each turn. In 40 minutes, I'd be on the highway, carrying a $68 peace offering toward a birthday party where peace seemed unlikely. But sometimes showing up was enough. Sometimes it had to be. Interstate 70 stretched ahead like a concrete ribbon, cutting through Ohio farmland under an afternoon sun that painted everything golden. I'd been driving for an hour, cruise control set at 68, radio playing classic rock at low volume. The gift bag sat secure in its seatbelt on the passenger side, my peace offering for enemy territory. Traffic moved steadily but not heavy, typical Saturday afternoon flow of families heading to dinner plans and weekend activities. I checked the dashboard clock. 2 o'clock, exactly. Right on schedule for a 4:30 arrival, maybe even a few minutes early if I kept this pace. The Mercedes appeared ahead like a silver beacon, hazard lights blinking against the highway shoulder. Expensive car, stopped dead. My mechanic's instincts kicked in before my brain finished processing the scene. Someone needed help. I eased off cruise control and guided the Toyota behind the luxury sedan. A woman stood beside the open hood, silver hair catching sunlight, wearing a navy blazer that probably cost more than my monthly pension. She looked somewhere in her 60s, composed despite the circumstances, but clearly out of her element. Stepping from my car, I felt the highway wind and heard the constant rush of passing traffic. The woman watched my approach with the careful evaluation people use when strangers offer assistance in isolated places. "Car trouble?" I called out, staying far enough back to seem non-threatening. "The engine just died." Her voice carried education and breeding, crisp consonants that spoke of private schools and country clubs. All the warning lights came on at once. I moved closer, hands visible, body language open. "I'm Donald, used to work on cars professionally. Mind if I take a look?" She hesitated, weighing options. A lone woman on a highway, deciding whether to trust a stranger. Smart caution. "Lauren Whitfield." She extended her hand with businesslike efficiency. "I'd appreciate any insight you might have." Her handshake was firm, confident, the kind of grip that suggested someone accustomed to making deals in commanding boardrooms. But right now she was just another driver with a broken car. What happened right before it quit? Strange noise from under the hood, almost like grinding. Then the temperature gauge shot up and everything went silent. I nodded, already forming a diagnosis. "Sounds like your water pump failed. When they go all at once. Usually takes the serpentine belt with them." Lauren's expression shifted from worry to cautious relief. "Is that fixable? Here, I mean?" "Depends on what else got damaged. Mind if I grab some tools from my car?" She stepped aside, gesturing toward the engine bay. "Please." My emergency toolkit lived in the Toyota's trunk. Basic wrenches, pliers, electrical tape, jumper cables. 40 years of turning wrenches had taught me to carry essentials wherever I went. You never knew when someone would need help. Returning to the Mercedes, I caught Lauren studying my car with undisguised curiosity. 10-year-old Toyota versus current-year luxury sedan. The contrast wasn't lost on either of us. "Let's see what we're dealing with," I said, leaning over the engine compartment. European engineering. Complicated where American cars stayed simple, expensive where domestic vehicles used cheaper alternatives. But an engine was an engine, and this one told its story clearly. Shredded belt hanging loose, coolant splattered across everything, water pump pulley wobbling on its shaft. "Good news and bad news," I announced, straightening up. "Good news is I can probably get you running again. Bad news is it's going to take some time." Lauren checked her watch. A slim gold piece that caught the light. "How much time?" "Hour and a half, maybe 2, assuming I can jury-rig a temporary fix." Her face fell slightly. "Going somewhere important, obviously." "Join the club. The alternative is calling a tow truck and waiting until Monday for parts," I continued. "Your choice." She looked down the empty highway, then back at me. Whatever she was weighing, the decision came quickly. "If you're willing to try, I'd be grateful." "What do you need me to do?" "Stay clear of the traffic side, mostly. This is going to get messy." I rolled up my sleeves and dove into the engine bay, hands already dark with road grime and coolant. The water pump would need complete replacement eventually, but highway repairs were about getting home, not permanent solutions. Lauren watched from a safe distance as I loosened the damaged belt and assessed the pump housing. Doable, but barely, the kind of repair that separated real mechanics from parts changers. "You're missing your Saturday afternoon for this," she observed. "Had somewhere to be myself. I worked the wrench around a stubborn bolt, but cars don't respect social calendars." "Where were you headed?" I glanced up from the engine. "Family dinner, birthday party." No need for details about reluctant invitations and class warfare. I hope this doesn't make you late. We'll see. The bolt finally gave way with a metallic ping. Where about you? Same thing, actually. Birthday celebration. Lauren's tone suggested complications there, too. Small world. The coincidence felt odd, but not impossible. Saturday evenings in Ohio probably hosted thousands of birthday parties. Still, something in her voice suggested her gathering might be as challenging as mine. I returned to the repair, losing myself in the familiar rhythm of problem solving. Remove the damaged parts, improvise with what's available, make it work long enough to get home. The same approach that had carried me through 40 years of other people's automotive emergencies. Time compressed the way it always did when I worked. Traffic hummed past, the sun tracked slowly westward, and my hands found their way through German engineering, like muscle memory, navigating familiar territory. 40 minutes into the repair, sweat had begun to collect under my collar, despite the May breeze. The alternator housing came free with a satisfying click, revealing the real culprit, worn brushes and a seized bearing that had finally given up the fight. "How long have you been doing this?" Lauren asked from her safe distance beside the guardrail. "Started when I was 16. I wiped my hands on an old rag, examining the failed component. 46 years, give or take. That's impressive. Most people our age are slowing down. I glanced up, catching her expression. Not condescending like Richard's family would be, but genuinely curious. Cars keep me honest. Either you fix them right, or they leave you stranded. Like mine just did. Exactly. I set the damaged alternator on my fender, reaching for the spare I kept in my emergency kit. Good thing I'm old-fashioned about carrying backup parts. Lauren moved closer, studying the components with interest rather than impatience. You just happen to travel with spare alternators? This one's rebuilt. Picked it up from a junkyard last month. Cleaned it up during slow evenings. Never know when you'll need it. Most people would just call roadside assistance. Most people don't know how to fix what breaks. I lined up the replacement unit, checking the mounting points. These days, everyone wants things done for them instead of learning to do them themselves. There's something to be said for self-reliance. She settled against the guardrail, clearly in no hurry despite our shared time pressure. My late husband used to say the same thing. Different field, but same principle. I caught the past tense, the slight softening in her voice. Sorry for your loss. Thank you, it's been 5 years, but sometimes it feels like yesterday. Working the new alternator into position, I understood that particular ache. Lost my wife 3 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry, too. Her tone carried genuine sympathy, not the awkward politeness most people offered. It changes everything, doesn't it? Changes how you spend your time, that's certain. The bolt threads caught cleanly, mechanical precision helping push aside emotional weight. Makes you think about what matters. A semi thundered past, its wind briefly overwhelming our conversation. When the noise faded, Lauren was watching me work with the kind of attention that suggested real interest, not just polite observation. You make it look easy. 46 years of practice. I guided the belt around the new pulley, checking tension with my fingers. Same as anything else. Start with what you know, figure out what you don't. Keep your hands busy while your brain solves problems. That's surprisingly philosophical for engine repair. I chuckled, surprised to find myself relaxed, despite the time pressure. My wife used to say I thought too much about simple things. Maybe she was right. Maybe thinking about simple things keeps us sane. Something in her tone suggested she understood complicated thinking too well. I looked up from the engine bay, studying her face, stress lines around her eyes, the kind that came from making decisions that affected other people. Whatever birthday party she was missing, it carried weight beyond social obligations. You're gathering tonight? Family? Business associates mostly, though sometimes the difference gets blurry. She checked her watch without obvious anxiety. What about yours? Family, my daughter's in-laws. I kept my tone neutral, avoiding the complications that made those 3 words inadequate. Not exactly my crowd, but you show up when family asks. Even when it's complicated, especially then. Lauren nodded as if she understood family obligations that stretched beyond comfort zones. The connection felt natural. 2 people navigating relationships that demanded more patience than they provided satisfaction. I returned to the alternator installation. tightening connections with steady pressure. The repair was nearly complete, but something in our conversation made me slow my pace slightly. When was the last time I'd talked with someone who actually listened instead of waiting for their turn to speak? Almost finished, I announced, though part of me regretted the approaching end of our accidental partnership. You've been incredibly kind. Lauren's gratitude carried genuine warmth. I know this has made you late. Sometimes being late is worth it. I tested the belt tension one final time, satisfied with the repair, ready to see if this works. She straightened, anticipation and nervousness mixing in her expression. Ready. I climbed into the Mercedes driver's seat, key in hand. The afternoon had taken an unexpected turn, transforming from dutiful family obligation into something more valuable. A reminder that decent people still existed in the world, even when you found them in the most unlikely places. The key turned, and the engine caught immediately, running smooth and steady. Success. Dashboard lights glowed green across the Mercedes instrument panel, every warning extinguished. I revved the engine gently, listening to the new alternator's quiet hum beneath the hood. Perfect. That sounds completely different, Lauren observed, leaning closer to hear the mechanical harmony. Should give you another 100,000 miles, at least. I climbed out, wiping my hands on the old rag. Just remember to check your belt tension every few months. Lauren retrieved her purse from the passenger seat, pulling out a leather wallet. What do I owe you? 2 hours of expert work, plus the part. Nothing. I'm sorry? You don't owe me anything. I began gathering my tools, stacking wrenches in their designated spots. Happy to help? Donald, you can't be serious. You've given up your entire afternoon, used your own equipment, your own alternator. Sometimes people need help, that's all. She stood holding her wallet, clearly struggling with my refusal. At least let me pay for the parts. That alternator had to cost something. $15 at the junkyard. I've got more than I'll ever use. I closed my toolbox with a satisfying click. Besides, what goes around comes around. Someone helped me once when I needed it. This feels wrong. Trust me, it's not. Lauren slowly returned her wallet to her purse, but her expression suggested the conversation wasn't finished. Then at least give me your phone number. I'd like to stay in touch. That surprised me more than it should have. You sure about that? Very sure. It's not often you meet genuinely decent people. I pulled my phone from my back pocket, an older model, that did what phones were supposed to do without unnecessary complications. What's your number? She recited it carefully while I entered the digits, then called her immediately to confirm. Her phone rang with classical music, something elegant I didn't recognize. Lauren Whitfield, I said, adding her contact information. There, now you're in my phone. And you're in mine. She smiled, the first completely relaxed expression I'd seen from her. Donald Campbell, Highway Angel. Just Donald's fine. We stood there for a moment, both recognizing that our accidental partnership was ending. 2 hours together had created something neither of us expected. Genuine friendship forged through shared conversation and mutual respect. I hate to cut this short, but I really should get moving, Lauren said, checking her watch. I'm already terribly late. The mention of time hit me like cold water. Late. My carefully planned schedule had disappeared into highway assistance. Yeah, me too. I forced casualness into my voice. Where are you headed, if you don't mind me asking? Dublin area. You? My heart skipped. Dublin. The same general direction, though Ohio was full of Dublin-bound traffic on Saturday evenings. Same area, actually. Small world. We might see each other on the road. She extended her hand for a final handshake. Thank you doesn't begin to cover what you've done today. Her grip was firm, warm, holding a moment longer than strictly necessary. Take care of yourself, Lauren. You too, Donald, and I mean it about staying in touch. I watched her settle into the driver's seat, adjusting mirrors and checking instruments, like someone who'd been genuinely worried about mechanical reliability. The Mercedes purred contentedly, every system functioning exactly as designed. From my own car, I grabbed the gift bag containing Serenity Thompson's silver picture frame. The ribbon handles had wilted during the afternoon heat, but the present itself remained intact. At least I wouldn't arrive empty-handed, even if I arrived embarrassingly late. Lauren's window rolled down as she prepared to merge into traffic. Drive safely. You too, and call if you have any more car trouble. I will, and Donald, thank you again. For everything. She pulled into the traffic flow with confidence, the Mercedes blending seamlessly among the other vehicles heading west toward Dublin. I waited a moment, watching her taillights disappear into the steady stream of Saturday afternoon travelers. My phone buzzed with a text message. Lauren's number appeared on the screen. Your kindness restored my faith in people. Thank you. I typed back quickly. Glad I could help. Safe travels. Starting my own engine, I felt an odd mixture of satisfaction and anxiety. The afternoon had taken an unexpected turn, transforming from dutiful family obligation into something genuinely meaningful. Lauren Whitfield, a stranger 2 hours ago, now someone I genuinely hoped to see again. But the Thompson party loomed ahead, and I was now catastrophically late. Richard's cold invitation echoed in my memory as I merged into traffic, following the same route Lauren had taken moments before. An hour later, I turned into the Worthington Hills subdivision, where every lawn looked professionally manicured and every driveway showcased vehicles that cost more than most people's annual salary. The Thompson house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, like a monument to successful living. 2-story colonial brick, bay windows gleaming, landscaping that belonged in a magazine. I parked my Toyota behind a line of luxury cars, BMW, Mercedes, Lexus, Audi. My 10-year-old Camry looked like it had wandered into the wrong neighborhood by mistake. The gift bag sat beside me, its ribbon handles now completely wilted, the silver frame inside suddenly feeling inadequate for this level of wealth display. Walking up the curved driveway, I caught my reflection in a parked car's window. 2 hours of roadside engine work had left their mark. Grease stains on my shirt, dirt under my fingernails despite quick cleanup, hair disheveled from highway wind. Not exactly business casual for Worthington Hills standards, the doorbell chimed with classical notes, probably worth more than my monthly utility bill. Through the glass panels, I could see movement, hear the murmur of conversation and clinking glasses. The party had been running smoothly without me. Serenity Thompson opened the door herself, and her expression shifted through several stages in rapid succession. Surprise, assessment, barely concealed horror. She took in my appearance with the kind of look people reserve for unpleasant surprises. Donald. Not a greeting, exactly. More like confirming an unwelcome diagnosis. Mrs. Thompson, sorry I'm late. Happy birthday. I offered the gift bag, which she accepted with the tips of her fingers, as if worried about contamination. 2.5 hours late, actually. Had to help someone with car trouble. I see. Her tone suggested she saw quite a lot, none of it favorable. Richard, your guest has arrived. The pause before guest carried enough ice to freeze the Ohio River. She stepped aside, allowing me into the foyer with obvious reluctance. The interior confirmed what the exterior promised. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, artwork that probably cost more than my car. Richard appeared from the living room, wine glass in hand, tie perfectly knotted, every hair in place. His eyes swept over my appearance with the same dismay his mother had shown. There you are. He managed to make it sound like an accusation. We were beginning to wonder if something had happened. Something did happen. Someone needed help. Right. He sipped his wine, clearly struggling with how to handle my presence. Well, you're here now. Rachel emerged from the kitchen, beautiful in a navy dress that probably cost more than my weekly pension. Her face lit up when she saw me, then dimmed as she took in my condition. Dad, I was so worried. She hugged me despite my disheveled state, her gesture warm against the Arctic reception from her in-laws. Are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. Just got a little dirty helping someone whose car broke down. Serenity's expression suggested that getting dirty was something decent people simply didn't do. Perhaps you'd like to freshen up. The powder room is... He's fine as he is. Palmer Thompson's voice cut across the foyer as he joined our awkward gathering. Where his wife deployed ice, he preferred blunt dismissal. No point in pretending this is anything other than what it is? Rachel's face flushed. Palmer, please. Please what? We're supposed to welcome him looking like he just crawled out from under an engine, while we're entertaining actual business associates. The emphasis on actual landed like a physical blow. I felt the afternoon's good feelings from helping Lauren begin to evaporate. under the weight of their collective judgment. "It was just car trouble," Rachel said quietly. "Dad was helping someone." "Of course he was." Serenity's smile could have cut glass. "How very characteristic." Richard cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the escalating tension but unwilling to defend me. "Maybe we should all just..." "Just what?" Palmer's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Pretend this is normal, that showing up looking like a garage mechanic to a birthday party is acceptable behavior?" I opened my mouth to respond, but Rachel stepped between us, her loyalty to me warring with her desire to keep peace in her marriage. "He didn't know he'd be helping with car repairs today," she said desperately. "These things happen." "These things," Serenity repeated, "happen to certain types of people." The words hung in the air like smoke from a house fire, impossible to ignore and equally impossible to take back. Movement toward the living room felt like walking into enemy territory. Guests turned their heads as we passed, conversations pausing mid-sentence as they took in my disheveled appearance among the perfectly groomed attendees. Crystal glasses caught the light, elegant appetizers decorated silver trays, and everyone wore clothes that probably cost more than my monthly pension. I found myself standing in the center of the room like an exhibit, aware that every eye was evaluating my grease-stained shirt and dirty jeans against the backdrop of marble tables and imported furniture. The birthday cake sat on the dining table, 3 layers of professional perfection that made my $68 gift frame seem pathetic by comparison. "Well," Serenity announced to the room with theatrical precision, "since Donald has finally graced us with his presence, perhaps we can begin the birthday celebration?" Her words carried enough venom to poison the punch bowl. Several guests shifted uncomfortably, recognizing the tension crackling through the formal atmosphere. I moved toward an empty chair, thinking to quietly blend into the gathering, but Serenity's voice cut across the room like a blade. "Oh, I don't think so." The entire party froze. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward us, witnessing what was about to unfold. "If you can't dress like a human being," she continued, her voice rising to ensure every guest could hear, "then don't sit at the table with human beings." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the background jazz music seemed to pause in shock. Rachel's face went white, her hand moving involuntarily toward her throat. "Mom Serenity, that's my father." Rachel's voice cracked with desperation. "Your father," Richard added with calculated cruelty, "who apparently thinks birthday parties are appropriate places to display his hobby clothes." I felt heat rise in my chest, the afternoon's confidence from helping Lauren battling against years of accumulated slights. Around us, guests pretended to examine their drinks while straining to hear every word, either change into something civilized. Palmer's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Or go home. We can't afford to have such a display at our celebration." The pause before display hit like a physical blow. I looked around the room at faces that mixed embarrassment with curiosity. Decent people uncomfortable with witnessing public humiliation but too polite to intervene. Rachel stepped between me and her husband's parents, her voice shaking. "Please don't do this. He helped someone whose car broke down. That's who he is. He helps people." "Exactly the problem." Serenity's smile could have cut glass. "Some people simply don't understand appropriate boundaries." I thought about Lauren, stranded on the highway, grateful for assistance from a stranger. The memory of her genuine appreciation stood in stark contrast to this elegant cruelty. She had thanked me for getting dirty to help her. These people wanted to punish me for the same thing. "You know what?" I said quietly, my voice carrying despite its low volume. "You're absolutely right." Rachel's eyes widened with panic. "Dad, no. Some people don't understand appropriate boundaries." I looked directly at Serenity, then at Richard, then at Palmer. "Some people think money makes them better than other human beings." The room's atmosphere shifted, guests recognizing that the entertainment had just become something uglier. "Some people," I continued, my voice steady despite the rage building inside, "forget that character isn't for sale." Serenity's face flushed red. "How dare you?" "I dare because someone needs to tell you the truth." I reached into my pocket, pulling out my keys. "You want me gone? Fine. But remember this moment when you're wondering why decent people avoid you." Rachel moved toward me, tears beginning to form. Dad, please don't go. It's just exactly what it is, sweetheart. I touched her shoulder gently. And you deserve better than this. I turned toward the foyer, dignity intact despite their efforts to destroy it. Behind me, I heard Serenity's voice rising in indignation, Richard muttering something about typical behavior, and Rachel's soft crying. The doorbell chimed through the house, its classical notes cutting through the toxic atmosphere like music from another world. Through the front window, I caught a glimpse of silver paint and elegant curves. My breath caught the Mercedes, the same luxury sedan I'd spent 2 hours repairing on the highway, now sitting in the Thompson driveway like an answered prayer. Car doors slammed outside, expensive sounds, the kind that whispered of quality engineering and substantial investment. Footsteps approached on the circular drive, confident heels clicking against imported stone. Lauren Whitfield appeared at the front door, visible through the glass panels like an apparition of grace and composure. She looked exactly as I remembered, silver hair perfectly styled, navy blazer immaculate, carrying herself with the quiet authority of someone accustomed to respect. Richard moved toward the entrance, his wine glass trembling slightly in his hand. That must be the investor, Palmer finished, his voice tight with sudden panic. My stomach dropped as understanding hit like a physical blow. Lauren, the birthday party, the same gathering she'd mentioned on the highway. Of course. Serenity's face had gone white, her eyes darting between me and the approaching figure. She's early. We weren't expecting... The door opened before Richard could reach it. Lauren stepped inside with natural confidence, her gaze sweeping the elegant foyer, before landing on the cluster of people in the living room. When her eyes found mine, her entire face lit up with genuine pleasure. "Donald!" Her voice carried across the space with unmistakable warmth. "What a wonderful surprise to see you here." She moved toward me with the easy grace of someone genuinely happy to encounter an old friend. The Thompson family stood frozen, their minds clearly racing to understand this unexpected connection. "Lauren." I felt my first smile in hours. Small world. "Isn't it just?" She reached me, and for a moment the afternoon's humiliation seemed to fade. "How did the rest of your drive go? I hope you weren't too late for your family gathering." Behind her I watched Serenity's expression cycle through confusion, recognition, and growing horror. Richard's wine glass had stopped moving entirely, suspended halfway to his lips. Palmer looked like someone had just told him his building permits had been revoked. "My family gathering?" I repeated, the irony not lost on me. "Actually, this is it." Lauren's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Really? How lovely. What are the odds?" She turned to include the Thompson family in her smile, and I watched them struggle between their natural hostility toward me and their desperate need to impress her. "Mrs. Whitfield," Palmer managed, his voice strangled with forced cheer. "Welcome to our home. We're so honored to have you join us for Serenity's birthday celebration." "The pleasure is entirely mine." Lauren's tone remained gracious, but I caught the slight pause as she took in the tense atmosphere. "I do hope I'm not interrupting in anything important." Serenity stepped forward, her transformation from contemptuous hostess to fawning supplicant so rapid it would have been comical under different circumstances. "Not at all. We were just welcoming Donald to the party." "How wonderful." Lauren's smile remained steady, but her eyes sharpened slightly. "Donald was such a lifesaver this afternoon. My car broke down on the highway, and he spent hours getting me back on the road, refused to take any payment. Can you believe it?" The silence that followed was profound. Every eye in the room moved between Lauren and me, guests and family alike trying to process this revelation. Rachel's face showed dawning hope, while her husband's family looked like they were watching their worst nightmare unfold in real time. "Hours?" Richard's voice cracked slightly. "At least 2, Lauren confirmed cheerfully. "I was completely stranded until Donald stopped to help. Such kindness from a complete stranger. You don't see that often these days." Palmer cleared his throat, his businessman's instincts fighting with his growing panic. "Yes, well, he's very helpful." The word helpful came out like he was admitting to a character flaw. Lauren's head tilted slightly, her social radar clearly picking up the undercurrents she didn't understand. "Is everything quite all right?" she asked, her tone still pleasant, but carrying an edge that suggested she missed very little. There seems to be some tension in the air. Well, yes. Richard stepped forward, wine glass trembling in his grip. We were just discussing appropriate attire for the celebration. Attire? Lauren's eyebrows rose slightly. You mean the clothes Donald is wearing? The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Every guest had stopped pretending not to listen, their conversations dying as they watched this elegant woman question their hosts. The clothes he wore while repairing my car this afternoon, Lauren continued, her voice carrying a new quality I hadn't heard before. Quiet authority that demanded attention. The clothes that got dirty because he spent 2 hours helping a stranger on the highway. Palmer cleared his throat, his businessman's instincts struggling against growing panic. Mrs. Whitfield, you have to understand. We maintain certain standards. Standards. Lauren repeated the word like she was examining something unpleasant. What exactly did you say to Donald about his appearance? The silence stretched painfully. Rachel moved closer to me, her face flushed with embarrassment at her family's behavior being exposed to this impressive stranger. Nothing inappropriate, Serenity managed, though her voice had lost its earlier venom. We simply suggested that perhaps he might feel more comfortable. What did you say? Lauren's voice cut through the excuse with surgical precision. I felt compelled to speak. It's fine, Lauren. Really, I should probably go anyway. No. She turned to me with a look that brooked no argument. It's not fine. What exactly did they say to you? Before I could answer, Richard's wine glass finally slipped from his shaking fingers, shattering against the marble floor with a sound like breaking promises. Red wine spread across the white stone like blood. They said I couldn't sit at the table with human beings, I said quietly. The words hung in the air like an indictment. Several guests gasped audibly. Lauren's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture, a straightening that made her seem suddenly taller, more formidable. I see. Her voice carried the chill of winter mornings. And this is how you treat someone who spent his afternoon helping others? This is your definition of appropriate behavior? Mrs. Whitfield, please understand, Palmer began desperately. Oh, I understand perfectly. Lauren moved to stand beside me, her presence like armor against their cruelty. I understand that Donald sacrificed his afternoon to help a stranger, arrived late to your party because of his kindness, and was told he wasn't fit to sit with human beings. Serenity's face had gone chalk white. We didn't mean... You meant exactly what you said. Lauren's tone could have cut diamonds. Now let me be equally clear about what I mean. She looked around the room, ensuring every guest could hear her words. Either Donald sits at this table with the respect and dignity he deserves, or I walk out that door immediately. The silence that followed was absolute. 20 pairs of eyes watched the most elegant woman in the room deliver an ultimatum to her hosts. Palmer's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. You don't understand, Richard whispered. Our reputation, our standing in the community. Your standing? Lauren's laugh held no warmth. Your standing is determined by how you treat people when you think no one important is watching. And I've been watching. She turned to address the room. I've seen more character in this man's little finger than exists in this entire household combined. Anyone who disagrees is welcome to leave with the hosts. Not a single guest moved toward the door. Rachel stepped forward, tears in her eyes. Miss Whitfield, I'm so sorry. This isn't how I wanted this evening to go. The apology should come from your husband's family, dear. Lauren's tone softened only for Rachel. You're not responsible for their choices. Palmer and Serenity exchanged desperate glances. Their birthday celebration had become a moral tribunal, with their most important guest serving as judge and jury. Of course, Donald is welcome at our table, Palmer said finally, his voice hollow with defeat. We were just concerned about his comfort. How thoughtful. Lauren's sarcasm could have frozen the wine. Then let's proceed to dinner, shall we? Donald, would you do me the honor of sitting beside me? I looked at her, this woman who had appeared like an answer to prayer, transforming humiliation into vindication with nothing but moral authority and unshakable dignity. I'd be honored, I said. 20 minutes later, we sat around the Thompson family's mahogany dining table, an awkward assembly of forced civility and underlying tension. Lauren had positioned herself where she could observe everyone, while I found myself in what was clearly the seat of honor, a position I'd never expected to occupy in this house. The meal service proceeded with painful politeness. Serenity carved the birthday roast with surgical precision, her movements sharp and controlled. Richard poured wine with hands that still trembled slightly, while Rachel attempted normal conversation about the weather and local events. Palmer, meanwhile, couldn't seem to stop talking. "We're so pleased you could join us this evening, Mrs. Whitfield," he said for the third time, sawing at his beef with unnecessary vigor. "Your reputation in the investment community precedes you, of course." Lauren raised an eyebrow. "Does it?" "Oh, absolutely. When we heard you were considering our proposal, well—" Palmer's voice trailed off as he realized what he'd said. The silence that followed was deafening. Every fork stopped moving. Every glass paused halfway to lips. Palmer's face went the color of the spilled wine that stained the foyer floor. "Your proposal?" Lauren's tone remained perfectly neutral, but I caught the sharp intelligence behind her question. "Well, I mean—" Palmer attempted damage control, but the words tumbled out faster than he could control them. "The expansion opportunity for Thompson Construction, the commercial development project we submitted to your firm last month." Understanding hit me like a physical blow. Lauren wasn't just some elegant woman who happened to be at their party. She was their potential investor, the person who could make or break Palmer's business, the woman whose approval they desperately needed. And they had just spent the evening treating the man who'd helped her like garbage. "I see." Lauren set down her fork with deliberate care. "Yes, I do evaluate investment opportunities through my venture capital firm, though I have to say tonight has been quite educational." Richard's wine glass stopped moving entirely. "Educational?" "Indeed. You see, my investment decisions aren't based solely on financial projections and market analysis." Lauren's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to boardrooms and million-dollar decisions. "Character matters, integrity matters, how people treat others when they think nobody important is watching, that matters enormously." Palmer's face had gone from red to gray. "Mrs. Whitfield, if there's been any misunderstanding—" "Oh, there's been no misunderstanding at all." Lauren's smile could have frozen fire. "I understand perfectly. You needed my investment, invited me to your party, and then spent the evening demonstrating exactly the kind of people you are." Serenity finally found her voice. "We were simply maintaining appropriate standards." "Standards?" Lauren's laugh held no warmth. "You told a man who'd spent his afternoon helping a stranger that he wasn't fit to sit with human beings? Is that your standard?" I felt the room spinning as the full scope of the situation became clear. These people who had humiliated me, who had tried to exclude me from their gathering, were dependent on the goodwill of the woman I'd helped on the highway. The cosmic justice of it was almost too perfect to believe. "The irony is quite remarkable, don't you think?" Lauren continued, her gaze moving around the table. "The man you deemed unworthy of your company is the same person who spent 2 hours repairing my car this afternoon. Without him, I wouldn't have made it here at all." Palmer's knife clattered against his plate. "We didn't know." "Exactly. You didn't know. You judged Donald based on his appearance, his profession, his social status. You never bothered to consider his character, his kindness, his competence." Lauren took a sip of wine, her movements deliberate and controlled. "In my experience, those are far better indicators of a person's worth than the price of their clothing." Rachel had tears in her eyes. "Mrs. Whitfield, my father is a good man, the best man I know." "I can see that, dear." Lauren's tone softened only for Rachel. "It's quite obvious to anyone with eyes to see. The question is whether your husband's family can see it." The birthday cake sat untouched on its crystal stand, 3 layers of perfection that nobody seemed interested in celebrating. Around the table, the other guests maintained careful silence, unwilling witnesses to a reckoning they hadn't expected. "I want you to understand something," Lauren said, addressing the Thompson family directly. Donald Campbell stopped on a busy highway to help a complete stranger. He worked for 2 hours in the heat, got dirty, used his own tools and parts, and refused to accept any payment. He made himself late for your gathering because he prioritized helping someone in need. Her words hung in the air like an indictment, and your response was to humiliate him for the very kindness that brought me here safely. Lauren's voice carried the weight of absolute moral authority. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. And character, as I mentioned, is crucial to my investment decisions. Palmer's hands were shaking now. Mrs. Whitfield, please. If you could find it in your heart to reconsider. Oh, I'm considering many things right now, Lauren replied, her tone suggesting the considerations were not favorable. Lauren set down her napkin with the deliberate precision of someone accustomed to making decisions that change lives. The dining room fell silent except for the soft ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner, counting down the moments until judgment. I've made my decision about the Thompson construction investment, she announced. Palmer's face went the color of ash. Mrs. Whitfield, please, if you could just... Let me finish. Lauren's voice carried the authority of boardrooms and million-dollar decisions. In my 30 years of venture capital investment, I've learned that numbers tell only part of the story. The most important factor in any business partnership is character. She looked around the table, her gaze settling on each Thompson family member in turn. Character reveals itself in how people treat others when they believe no one important is watching. Character determines whether a business relationship will thrive or merely survive until the first real challenge. Richard's wine glass sat forgotten in his trembling hand. Character? Exactly. You see, I don't just invest in business plans or market projections. I invest in people. And the people I choose to back must demonstrate basic human decency, integrity, and respect for others. Lauren's tone remained professional, but steel ran beneath her words. Those qualities aren't negotiable. Serenity leaned forward desperately. Mrs. Whitfield, surely you understand that we maintain certain standards. Standards? Lauren's smile could have cut glass. Yes, let's discuss standards. This afternoon, when my car broke down on the highway, I was helped by a man who spent 2 hours of his own time, used his own tools and parts, and refused any payment for his assistance. That man demonstrated the kind of character I value in business partners. Palmer's hands shook as he reached for his water glass. We had no way of knowing. That's precisely the point. You had no way of knowing Donald's connection to me, so you revealed your true selves. You told a man who had sacrificed his afternoon to help a stranger that he wasn't fit to sit with human beings. Lauren's voice remained calm, but her words landed like hammer blows. You demonstrated exactly the kind of character I cannot support. The room felt like a courtroom awaiting verdict. Other guests had stopped pretending to eat, their attention fixed on this elegant woman delivering judgment with surgical precision. I require business partners who understand that success depends on more than profit margins and market share. It depends on treating people with dignity, regardless of their appearance, profession, or social status. Lauren's gaze moved to me briefly, acknowledgement and respect clear in her expression. Donald Campbell embodies those values. You do not. Rachel's voice came out as barely a whisper. What does this mean? It means, Lauren said clearly, that I will not be investing in Thompson Construction. I cannot, in good conscience, support a business led by people who lack basic human decency. The silence that followed was deafening. Palmer's face had gone from ash to chalk, the reality of financial ruin settling in like a physical weight. Serenity's perfectly composed facade cracked, revealing genuine panic beneath the social polish. Please reconsider, Palmer managed. Our expansion plans, the jobs we'll create, the community development. We'll have to find funding elsewhere. Lauren's tone brooked no argument. I've seen enough tonight to know that any business relationship between us would be fundamentally incompatible with my values. Richard set down his wine glass with shaking hands. But we didn't know about your connection to him. And that's exactly why this decision is easy. Lauren's smile held no warmth. You treated Donald poorly because you thought it didn't matter. Because you believed there would be no consequences for cruelty? That tells me everything I need to know about your character and judgment. I felt something shift inside my chest, a lightness I hadn't experienced since Martha passed. Not triumph exactly, but the profound satisfaction of seeing justice served. These people who had tried to humiliate me, who had deemed me unworthy of basic respect, were facing the consequences of their own behavior. Character isn't something you can turn on and off based on who's watching, Lauren continued. It's who you are when you think it doesn't matter. And tonight, you showed me exactly who you are. Palmer's business empire, built on contracts and connections dependent on investment and goodwill, crumbled in that elegant dining room with the efficiency of a controlled demolition. 3 decades of social climbing and wealth accumulation undone by 15 minutes of revealed character. I hope, Lauren said, standing with natural grace, that this experience teaches you something valuable about how to treat other human beings, though I suspect the lesson will be expensive. The birthday cake sat untouched on its crystal stand, 3 layers of celebration that no one had any appetite to enjoy. Standing in the foyer, 10 minutes later, I retrieved my jacket from the closet while Lauren gathered her purse. The Thompson house felt like a crime scene now, beautiful surfaces hiding the wreckage of exposed character and collapsed dreams. Rachel appeared beside me, her eyes red from crying. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I never wanted—" "I know, sweetheart." I pulled her into a gentle hug. "None of this is your fault. You're caught in the middle of something you didn't create. What am I supposed to do now? Be yourself. That's all any of us can do." I kissed her forehead. "You're better than this, Rachel. Don't let their bitterness change who you are." Lauren waited patiently by the door, her presence a calm anchor in the emotional storm. When I finished speaking with Rachel, she stepped forward with natural grace. "Lauren," I said, surprising myself with my boldness, "would you like to get some dinner? I know a place nearby that serves decent food without requiring a trust fund." Her smile was the first genuine warmth I'd seen all evening. I'd like that very much. We left the Thompson house behind, walking into the cool May evening air that felt like freedom after hours of social suffocation. My Toyota sat between 2 luxury cars like a reminder that authenticity existed among artifice. "Your car or mine?" Lauren asked, amusement dancing in her eyes. "Mine's probably more reliable," I said, thinking of the alternator repair that had started this entire adventure. During the short drive to Miller's Steakhouse, a local place where the food was excellent and the pretension non-existent, we talked about everything except the evening's drama, the weather.ohio traffic, the way spring looked different when you'd lived long enough to appreciate seasons. Miller's welcomed us with warm lighting and the comfortable buzz of genuine conversation. We settled into a corner booth, where red vinyl seats had been worn smooth by decades of honest meals and real relationships. "So," Lauren said after we'd ordered, "this has been quite a day." "That's one way to put it." I reached for my water glass, still processing the evening's transformation. I woke up this morning dreading a birthday party. Now I'm having dinner with someone who completely changed my perspective on everything. The universe has a sense of humor, doesn't it? She leaned back against the booth. "I've spent 30 years evaluating people for business partnerships. Usually takes months of research, background checks, financial analysis. Today I learned everything I needed to know in 2 hours on a highway." Our meals arrived, simple steaks and vegetables, the kind of food that satisfied without needing to impress. We ate slowly, conversation flowing with the ease of people who'd discovered unexpected compatibility. "Can I ask you something?" I said, cutting into my steak. "Why does character matter so much in your business decisions?" Lauren considered the question while she chewed thoughtfully. "Because everything else can be taught or hired. Market knowledge, financial skills, operational expertise. You can bring in consultants for those. But character, integrity, the way someone treats others when they think it doesn't matter?" She shook her head. "That's who people really are. And I've learned that bad character eventually destroys everything else." The Thompson family learned that lesson the hard way tonight. "They'll survive," Lauren said without malice. "Palmer will find other investors, though probably not on terms as favorable as mine would have been. Serenity will adapt her social status to match their reduced circumstances. Richard will keep his job and perhaps learn something about choosing sides. And Rachel? Rachel will be fine. She has something her husband's family lacks, genuine kindness. That'll carry her through whatever comes next." We talked for nearly 2 hours, covering everything from business philosophy to family history to the small pleasures that made life worthwhile. Lauren had grown up in modest circumstances, built her success through careful judgment and hard work. She'd been married for 35 years to a man who died of cancer, leaving her wealthy but lonely in ways that money couldn't address. "Friends become more precious as we get older," she said as we finished our coffee. Real friends. People who see who you actually are and like you anyway. I'd like to be that kind of friend, I said. You already are. Walking to our cars in the restaurant parking lot, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Martha died. Genuine optimism about the future. Not because of the evening's vindication, though justice felt good after years of being judged by the wrong criteria, but because I'd found someone who valued the same things I did. Donald, Lauren said, stopping beside her Mercedes, I want you to have my personal phone number. Not the business line, my actual number. Call me when you want to talk to someone who appreciates good character over good appearances. I programmed her number into my phone, right below Rachel's contact information. You realize you're going to hear from me regularly. I'm counting on it. Driving home through the quiet streets of Dublin, I reflected on the day's impossible journey, from highway assistance to moral vindication to genuine friendship. Martha would have loved Lauren, two women who understood that kindness mattered more than status, that helping others was its own reward. My phone buzzed with a text message. Lauren's number appeared on the screen. Thank you for reminding me that good people still exist. Looking forward to our friendship. I typed back, thank you for seeing something worth defending. Drive safely. The apartment waited for me, small and modest and exactly what I needed, but it no longer felt empty. Tomorrow would bring new possibilities. Coffee with a friend who valued character, conversations with someone who understood that dignity couldn't be purchased. Sometimes justice arrives wearing an elegant blazer and driving a Mercedes, armed with nothing but moral authority and the power to recognize authentic human worth. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.